All right. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us here at UWI STAT Mona for another event for our CARICOM week. As you know, this week we'll be celebrating CARICOM week, or we have been celebrating CARICOM week from the 21st of February straight until the 26th of February, which it ends on Friday. So today we'll be having our CARICOM 101 session featuring Vice Chancellor Professor Hilary Beckles. So he'll be joining us at 4 p.m. Thank you to those of you who joined us early. We really appreciate that. Early birds catch the most worms, and you're definitely in for a treat. Just give us a few more minutes to iron out a few things for you, and then we'll be hearing from some of the current vice presidents and presidents of the UWI STAT Mona Ambassador Corps, who will be sharing with us their feelings, their sentiments on CARICOM, the Caribbean community, what it's about, what does it mean to them, and how it is that they have been utilizing their portfolio to advance its tenets. So just bear with us for a few minutes and we will begin that segment. Thank you.
Sweet memories for the ladies. Hey yo, double M and Tara Smiley. Oh gosh, yeah. Hey, let we make a memory. Ooh, I can feel it in my heart. Hey, feel it in my soul, and I can feel when we're apart. Girl, I want you to know when I'm with you, you're all I need. You're taking over me, and I would never leave. When I'm with you, I don't ever feel like letting go. Don't let me go. So let we make a memory. We jamming that picture way, like a movie. They'll be watching way. So let we make a memory. Take a shot inside the year. What's nothing we meet up again. So let we make a memory.
Your friend call us in today. When it is at call us today.
Everything we develop, coming down, we coming, and we ready to go hard again. We coming again. And after that, you know they go target. Because they go be calling we name. They calling we name. So let we make a memory. We come in that picture where, like a movie, they'll be watching where. So let we make a memory. They got us inside the year. Hustle up. So let we make a memory. Do something that you to me. Make something that we could share. Post it up inside the year. We make a memory. They're looking for we to pray. I can see and take it blame. Up against the wall again. Girl, I can feel it in my heart. Yeah. Feel it in my soul. And I can feel when we're apart. And I want you to know when I'm with you, you're all I need. You're taking over me, and I would never leave. When I'm with you, I don't ever feel like letting go. Don't let me go. So let we make a memory. We jam in that picture way, like a movie. They'll be watching way. So let we make a memory. Take a shot inside the year. Hustle until we meet up again. So let we make a memory. Do something that you to me. Make something that we could share. Post it up inside the year. Make a memory. They're looking for we to pray. I can see a them up against the wall again. We're coming. we're coming. We're coming. We're coming.
All right, so if you are just joining us, I want to take the time to welcome you back, or rather welcome you for the first time. Oh, seem to be experiencing a bit of difficulties here. Give me a second. Right. So as I was saying, sorry about that, everyone. Welcome to our CARICOM one-on-one session put on here by us as UWI STAT Mona ambassadors and ambassador designates as a part of our highly anticipated CARICOM week, which began on Sunday and will end tomorrow. And I want one immaculate, one sharp, one amazingly astute person to comment in the chat and tell me what our theme for CARICOM week this year is. And yes, if you are an ambassador, it doesn't matter. You can say the theme in the chat. So I want someone to tell me what the theme for CARICOM week this year is. What do you think it is? What have you been hearing? What you see on a flyer? What you hear me bust ears about? Just tell me, what do you think the theme is? All right, someone says we are West Indian. All right, that's a part of it indeed. Yes, we are West Indian. That is a part of it. But you're missing two last parts. So can anyone tell me what they think the theme is? What have they heard? What have they seen? What did we go on CVM and talk about? You know, we are West Indian, but what else? Right, we are West Indian, many countries, one Caribbean. Indeed. That's right. That was, hey, Raquel. Yes, that's the theme. So in keeping with the theme for this afternoon, we will be having a little bit of a session slash presentation slash conversation with the Vice Chancellor, Professor Hilary Beckles, who should be joining us at 4 p.m. As you know, he is a busy man, so we're going to give him a little bit of a leeway. But for those of you who have joined us before, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Ensure that you follow us on our social media pages, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at UWISTAT_Mona. Now, before we get into the session with the Vice Chancellor at 4 p.m., we will be having a bit of a discussion with our president as well as other vice presidents from the UWISTAT Mona Corps. So I'm going to actually invite our president, Mr. James Peart, to just come and give us a brief greeting, just a brief greeting, tell the people hello and welcome.
All right, so thank you for that, Ashley. So greetings to one and all and a good afternoon. It definitely gives me immense warmth and pleasure to grace you all here today on behalf of the executive and especially the CARICOM committee. Tremendous contentment to me in terms of being here among esteemed personalities, lovers of history, and those of us with a sweet tooth for knowledge. In other words, our amazing audience. But before we continue this session, I would definitely like to share or express my heartfelt gratitude to all of you who have definitely committed to being here at this session. Kudos to you all. And I would also like to share my sentiments to the success and commendations to the CARICOM team. This event would not have been possible or the week without the support of each and every one of you here. As the UWI STAT Vice Chancellor's ambassadors, we are the representatives across 4 and soon to be all 5 campuses of the University of West Indies, with the goal of bolstering Pelican pride and providing opportunities for our students across the campuses. For 15 years, the Vice Chancellor's ambassadors have established and continue to build on a framework for students to grow, to build and to establish themselves personally and professionally in their respective capacities, whether as leaders, whether as pioneers, or even trendsetters in their different capacities. And that could definitely not be possible without the legacy which was formed in the prior years and continues within our minds and our hearts today. So, for the focus of today's session, we have CARICOM 101, which is an address by Vice Chancellor, Professor Sir Hilary Beckles. So each and every one of you here today will have the opportunity to take one step closer into a new understanding, modifying our perspectives, as well as unlocking new truths that we probably may not have thought about before. Through this seminar, you, our lovely audience, will have this platform to have further insights, gain understanding, and focus on the essential aspects of our history and our attitudes today. So thank you once again, everyone, for coming in, for tuning in, whether you're from a CARICOM nation or you're tuning in internationally, or if you're even here at home or nearby. Thank you once again. So sit back, relax, enjoy, and listen as we have the rest of the speakers from our vice chancellors, sorry, our vice presidents, and then from the vice chancellor. Thank you once again.
Thank you for that introduction and greeting. That is our president, Ambassador James Peart. And I am also going to invite the vice president of CARICOM Relations for UWI STAT Mona to give brief greetings. And of course, that is me. I'm in dual position and dual roles today. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ashley Onfroy, Vice President of CARICOM Relations for UWI STAT Mona. And I must say, this has been an exceptional week. I've been having fun. I'm sure most, if not all of the attendees at all our events can share similar sentiments. It has been a very informative week. It has been a very interactive week. We have really begun to embody what it means to be true regional citizens, true West Indians, by very virtue of us coming together, sharing our cultures, or cuisines, or languages, knowledge about Caribbean community and what it means for us to really integrate and collaborate. It's with great pleasure that I moderate this session this afternoon, that I am here with you. I don't want to take it for granted that we have taken the time of this afternoon to come and hear from our Vice Chancellor, to come and listen to other Vice Presidents of UWI STAT Mona and UWI STAT Mona Western Jamaica campus, because we also have the Vice President of CARICOM from WJC here to share with us a little bit about what he has been doing on his campus as it relates to advancing regional integration. I also want to extend the heartiest gratitude to my committee members, which comprises of ambassadors and ambassador designates, who have really given of themselves this year to really advance the mandates of CARICOM, of unity, of West Indian pride and regionalism. And I also want to acknowledge, who is also here on this platform with me, my loving, caring, honestly, I could not have asked for a better deputy, Patrice Clayton, who has really been very instrumental in carrying off everything this week. So very quickly, I'm just going to give you an overview of what we have done this week. On Sunday, we had our church service. It was attended by a few ambassadors and ambassador designates as per the COVID-19 protocol, myself, the president, and a few representatives from the UWI Mona Guild of Students. And in the afternoon, we did indeed have our CARICOM cuisine / CARICOM brunch. It was the first of its kind. And I think those of us who were there can say that we enjoyed it, that we experienced some very new and interesting flavors from various Caribbean islands. We also had our regional investment forum, but even before we got to that, on Monday we had our pen pal games evening, where we saw several pen pals from various countries. I'm pretty sure there are representatives from at least 10 CARICOM member states who were there interacting, playing games, and we played Kahoot, and we learned about the various history and economy and politics, and just the whole geography of various CARICOM countries. On Tuesday, listen, if you were not there on Tuesday, you missed quite a lot. We had our regional investment forum, where we had representatives from the Caribbean single market and economy. We had CEOs from Barbados, St. Lucia, Trinidad, it was really just a very riveting discussion about investment, about integrational wealth. And it was a good time. And of course, you're here with us this afternoon to hear from the esteemed Vice Chancellor, Professor Hilary Beckles. Before he comes, though, I am going to invite our panelists, who are namely Mr. Jamoy Phillips. He is the Vice President of Disaster Mitigation and Climate Change of the UWI STAT Mona Ambassador Corps. I'm going to invite him to turn on his camera and turn on his mic. We're also going to have on this bit of a brief panel discussion our president, Mr. James Parrott, who just spoke to us previously. We're also going to have Nicholas McIntyre, and Nicholas is the Vice President of CARICOM Relations for the Western Jamaica campus. Yes, Mona has Mona, the main campus, and it has Western Jamaica campus. So we're just gonna invite them to come on and join us, turn on their cameras, and prepare to just share with us some insight into what it is that they have been doing to advance the tenets and the mandates of CARICOM thus far. That's right. St. Nicholas is getting big up in the chat, in the Zoom chat. So I'm just going to repeat for those of you who are probably just joining us or probably wondering what's going on. Yes, we're going to have the address by Professor Hilary Beckles. But, you know, before he comes, we just want to have a conversation so that persons who are just joining us, persons who probably don't know about UWI STAT or anything about CARICOM Week, can understand what this week is about and what we have been doing. So the first question that I'm going to ask, and I think I'm going to ask it of Mr. Phillips. So Jamoy, when you unmute, just introduce yourself and tell us what it is that CARICOM means to you.
All right, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jamoy Phillips. I'm Vice President of Disaster Mitigation and Climate Change. What does CARICOM mean to me? All right, so CARICOM for me is basically the Caribbean integrating on different levels, political. Well, we definitely have a tied history, sharing our cultural background and yeah, different aspects. For me in specific, you know, climate change and so forth, we're within a similar geographic region and we share waters together. And and for me, it's mainly integration. And despite the waters, I believe that as a region, we should be more integrated.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Jamoy. And I think it's very important for us to hear from us here as youth what CARICOM means to us, because quite often, you know, when we were in possibly primary school or high school, we kept on hearing about CARICOM, 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 and they always give us a textbook definition. But what does it mean to us? You know, how do you feel as a CARICOM citizen, or what does that even mean? James, do you want to shed some light on that, your perspective on how you feel about being a Caribbean citizen, or what you think CARICOM means to you?
Sure, and definitely no problem. All right, so for me, I would say being a CARICOM member or citizen is definitely something that I wear with a badge of pride, in terms of it's basically not being a single entity, but being an amalgamation of thoughts, amalgamation of ideas, a history, a culture. And to know that we have our different regional brothers and sisters from across the Caribbean here with us even now, who all share similar, maybe varying in a bit, histories, food, culture, and did I also mention food? Love that so much. In terms of the fact that we can all come together at the end of the day and that we push forward for, in essence, coming together as a team. So even as president of the UWI STAT Mona Corps, we've definitely tried pushing forward, definitely with our brothers and sisters from the Kville campus, from the Open campus, from the St. Augustine campus, from the WJC campus, and going forward, we'd also look forward to the growth of another STAT Corps on the 5 islands. But I would definitely say that's what it means to be a CARICOM citizen to me.
Okay, thank you for sharing that, James. And I know some persons got really, really, really excited because we have just been joined by the Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies. Now we're just going to give him some time to settle in. I see him smiling and we're very, very happy to have you. So we're just going to give him some time to settle in and prepare himself as we conclude with 2 final questions. Right. Wow. I'm excited, very, very excited. So if you're here with us, I just want to let you know that the Vice Chancellor is now here. So tell all your friends, spam every single group chat that you can think of, go on Instagram, Twitter, say, "Im there, im reach." So get everybody to come so you can hear his presentation and his advice as how it is that we can play our parts as CARICOM youth. So Jamoy, I want to ask you, you know, you're the Vice President of Disaster Mitigation and Climate Change. Big, big, fancy words, lots of prestige. Now, what is it that you have been doing in your capacity to really advance the tenets and the mandates of CARICOM? And before you answer that, just tell us probably 2 mandates that you are interested in advancing and what you have been doing.
All right. So personally, I'm a big fan of the integration mandate. As you would have known, Ashley, I'm a humanitarian outside of UWI STAT, and I would have traveled the Caribbean, integrating with the various cultures. And if we actually give ourselves the more opportunity, and if more opportunities were provided for us to integrate, then we'd be one, like literally one, because there's not any major difference between us and our brothers and sisters on the different islands. Another one, being a public policy and management student, is governance structure and the economic structure of the Caribbean. That's somewhere that I have a lot of interest in. Funny enough, for the the Vice President of Disaster Mitigation and Climate Change not highlighting climate change in the Caribbean, but it is a major issue. And what I've been doing in working within this portfolio is, STAT is a regional core, and we have been raising awareness. Trust me, we have some extensive awareness campaigns that we have done this year as it relates to climate change. We have also been involved in advocacy. We have also formed strong partnerships and alliances across the region and internationally as well to aid in the fight of climate change, especially for us as Caribbean citizens. One such partnership would have been with the Pacific Islands, which is in terms of geography or the geological construct is similar to that of the Caribbean, and they would have been facing the impacts of climate change more heavily than we are currently, but we know what it is like, and what is happening for them is something that could easily happen for us. So we have aided them in order to help ourselves as well. So we have been seeking an advisory opinion from the United Nations in order to have a clearer understanding of the Paris Agreement, so we could fight collectively as a region the issues of climate change and disaster mitigation.
Thank you for sharing your insights into that, Jamway. I'm pretty sure that James probably wants to say a little bit, but before he comes, I think it's only fitting that as Vice President of CARICOM Relations, that I also share what we have been doing as per obviously the nature of that portfolio. So one of the things that we have been focusing on this year is really education and integration. And so we would have been embarking on, and it's still actually going on right now, the CARICOM program, which was started by the then CARICOM VP, James Peart, who is now the president. And this year we have broadened it. So this year we have over 500 participants from all 15 CARICOM member states. And I think that is amazing. It's very robust. It's happening. We have persons interacting right now, talking about their culture, their shared history, things that they think need to be done in terms of actually putting in policies and legislation. And I think that's a very amazing opportunity. Never before have I seen something of this magnitude. We have them collaborating to make cuisine. We have the culinary challenge going on right now, and I think that's precisely what it is that we should be doing. Fun and creative ways. And I think that our portfolio this year has really gotten a lot of buzz on campus, really getting persons talking about it. Because usually when you think about CARICOM, you tend to think about something that is a little bit dormant, but we want persons to know that it's alive, it's well, it's here, it's practical, and it's something that you can be directly involved in. And we have other forums. I mean, just on Tuesday, we had the Regional Investment Forum where we explain to persons that it is possible for you to be in one CARICOM nation and invest in another, and that there's an open market. And I think that those are some of the things that persons are interested in hearing, feeling and learning practical methods in which they can integrate with the other Caribbean countries. So this is the final question, and I'm just going to allow James Perry to touch. That's right, we are West Indian and Island Life. To touch briefly on it, and then I am going to invite Mrs. Davison Francis to introduce the Vice Chancellor. So James, wrap it up for us. You can go ahead and unmute.
Okay, no problem. Shoot the question again, Ashley.
Okay, I was just saying that we are wrapping up this discussion as you were discussing how it is that as an ambassadorial group, we have been advancing the mandate of CARICOM. So I'm saying just wrap it up for us, give us your final few words on why it is important for us as Caribbean youth to play our part in making this idea, this theory of a Caribbean community that's so robust a reality.
Okay, no problem. All right, so as being a part of the UWI STAT Vice Chancellor's Ambassador Corps, since my time as Vice President, I have had the experience of integrating and interacting with different individuals from across the Caribbean. I can even remember being at the 6th Caribbean Youth Leader Summit with an array of different youth leaders, individuals from different backgrounds who were basically sharing what it was to be CARICOM to them, and in terms of what we could do together, not only as youth, but as a combined and collective CARICOM. And I won't lie, I was very impressed by that, to the caliber and the extent to which we had been able to accomplish certain things at that conference. And then even leaving from that conference, we were able to continue to socialize, the network, and to have collaborative events, even previously in September from such events and networking. We're able to have the Caribbean Youth Day session where we had individuals from the Anguilla Youth Council, from the St. Lucia Youth Council, from Dominica, tuning in and sharing their different perspectives on the topics spoken. So it just really proves and drives into the fact that as individuals, you can make an impact or a change in your home. You can make it in your country, but it really says a lot when you can continue to do so on a regional basis and on an international basis. So that is the end for me, and I now hand over to Mrs. Celia Davison Francis.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, James. Thank you, Ashley, and the rest of the CARICOM team. You're doing a great job. I'm so proud of you all. I'm delighted to be here. Some of you may not know that apart from being Director of Alumni Relations, I'm also the Regional Director of the UWI STAT Corps, and the CARICOM Week of Activities that Mona has put on has just been stellar. It's been a great, great event. Ashley mentioned some of the things that they have been doing and some of the wonderful and informative information that they've been giving out. I would just like to let you all know too that we are heading for an even more exciting time as we've been contacted by CARICOM to work with their youth desk much more closely and to work not only on CARICOM issues, especially the Pen Pal initiative, which they are very impressed with. So kudos to James and to all of you who have been working so hard to make it expand this year, and also on climate change. So we have a lot of interesting and exciting things coming up. So again, I'd also like to take the opportunity to welcome all of the ambassadors designate that are here. I'm sure you are convinced that this is the core to be a part of, now while you're on campus, and later as you become alumni ambassadors to keep in touch with. So today's masterclass webinar is really the Mona Corps initiative. And as you all know, it's entitled CARICOM 101. it is my great pleasure to introduce the UWI Vice Chancellor, Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, who is the 8th Vice Chancellor of the UWI. He really needs no introduction because I'm sure all of you know that he's a distinguished academic, international thought leader, United Nations committee official, and a global activist. But he's also Vice President of the International Task Force for the UNESCO Slave Route Project, a consultant for the UNESCO Cities for Peace Global Program, an advisor to the UN World Culture Report, and advisor to the Secretary General of the UN on Sustainable Development. Additionally, he is a director of Sagicor Financial Corporation PLC, the largest financial company in the region, chairman of the Caribbean Examinations Council, the former chairman of the UWI Press, president of the Universities Caribbean, an editor of the UNESCO General History of Africa series, and a director of the Global Tourism Resilience and Crisis Management Center, and many, many other things. Sir Hilary is a Caribbean thought leader and a regionalist, and it's my very great pleasure to turn over the mic to our Vice Chancellor, Sir Hilary Beckles. We welcome you, Sir Hilary. We're all ears.
Oh, thank you so much, Celia. Very kind of you, your generous introduction. And hello to all of my ambassadors. Wonderful to be with you, to be a part of you. Ashley, I was listening to you very clearly. You were awesome. And really, really appreciate that. It brought back memories of my own youth, you know, to hear you like that. You know, I'm thinking, my word, you know, when I was a teenager, you know, I was precocious and aggressive and clear, you know, stay as you are, stay focused. And that's wonderful. And I'm going to continue from where James left off. So he has given me the prompt on the kinds of issues I ought to address, and I really want to thank him. I know time is limited, so I will get right down to it. And I have just come out of a CARICOM Heads of Governments meeting. So I am, the heads of governments have been meeting from yesterday, and I spent all of yesterday in the heads of governments meeting. They're going on as we are speaking. So I came out of that heads of governments meeting to speak about CARICOM. So I am fresh off the block, so to speak. The issues are in front of me. But first of all, allow me to say something about who I am. I think you should have at least a biographical sense of who the Vice Chancellor really is. Well, in a narrative sense, like many of you, I came from the working class. I'm a grassroots boy. My parents were part of the Windrush. I'm sure you're following that Windrush story. My parents packed up from Barbados in the early 60s and went off to England to find work, to, as we said, to look at work, so they could send back those remittances for the kids. So I was a barrel baby. As I'm part of that tradition of the barrel baby, I was only a few years old when they went off to the UK. And then later on, I joined them when I was a teenager. When I was 14, I went off to the UK to join my parents and was part of the diaspora. So I started my secondary school in Barbados, and I finished my secondary school in England and went off to university and was a part of that West Indian community in England. So I am diaspora, I'm West Indian, diaspora. And when I finished my PhD, I couldn't wait to get back to the Caribbean. So as soon as I finished my PhD, I was 24 years old, and I jumped on the plane at 24 and came back to the Caribbean, to Jamaica. So my first job was teaching at Mona. So, and I had never been to Jamaica before, but I was so excited. But when I was growing up in the UK, I was Jamaicanized because there were most of the West Indians in England were Jamaicans. So most of my school friends and my early girlfriends and all of that kind of stuff, you know, Jamaica, 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 because I was living in the Jamaican community. So I became West Indianized. I became a West Indian in every way while growing up as a youngster in the UK. So I came to Jamaica, where I started teaching, and you know, I teased my colleagues that I was given the lowest job possible in the university system. My contract says I was temporary, part-time, evening lecturer. The very bottom of the scale. They gave me a 1-year contract. So I came up from England to Jamaica for 1 year at the lowest level of the teaching staff. And at the end of that year, the university said, but we wish to retain you, you should stay. So they gave me a normal contract, and I spent 7 years at Mona. And then I wanted to go to Barbados to be a part of the KFIL. So I went to KFIL for 15 years. And then I was brought back to Mona as the Pro Vice Chancellor for Undergraduate Studies. And I came back to Jamaica for another 5 years. Then I went back to Barbados as principal of the KFIL campus, which I did for 12 years. And now I'm back in Jamaica as Vice Chancellor. So I spent the last 40 years up and down the Caribbean, serving UE and serving the region. So that's a bit of background, that's who I am, and it should tell you something about my own development. I have been teaching Caribbean history. I've been teaching global history. So therefore, my knowledge of the Caribbean is very deep and wide, not only the English-speaking Caribbean, but the entire Caribbean. I have traveled all of the islands. I have been to all of the Caribbean islands. I know them all very well. From Cuba through all the way, Puerto Rico, all the way down, Martinique, Guadeloupe, Jamaica, all the way through the Eastern Caribbean, Guyana. So I know this region like the back of my hand. So I am embedded in it. I know its geography, its history, its culture. I have lived a Caribbean life, and I have done it while being a UE academic. Being a UE academic gave me the platform on which to experience the Caribbean as my living space. And I always imagined, therefore, CARICOM as the custodian of this phenomenal history, which begins with the indigenous people. And you live in Jamaica and Trinidad, the Eastern Caribbean, and all of these communities, some of them abandoned and historical, others are archaeological survey sites, and you get a sense of the Caribbean people, the indigenous people who were up and down the Caribbean Sea, island to island. The indigenous people lived the Caribbean as a federation. They lived from island to island. They moved from island to island. There were no immigration departments. All the islands belonged to them, and they moved through the region, including Mexico and Central America, from Jamaica to Mexico in the canoes, from Jamaica to Costa Rica to Panama, from Trinidad to Panama to Guyana. That was the world. That was our indigenous world. That is the world we are trying to get back to. In between then and now, we've had colonization, and each European power made it almost impossible for their islands to talk to the other islands. So the English islands, the English-owned islands, could not trade or migrate freely with the Spanish islands and the French islands and the Dutch islands. So the Caribbean became broken up into these compartments, language compartments, but also immigration compartments, trade compartments. There was all of these blockages between the components, and the Caribbean evolved. The Caribbean evolved as such a space, a blocked up space, a compartmentalized place. And what we are trying to do now is to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. It fell off the wall, it broke up into pieces. And now we are saying we are going to put Humpty Dumpty back together so it becomes one living space, one world, our world. All of it belongs to us. Each island is my own. Each country is mine. I have a right to travel to each island, to live there. This is my world. This is my civilization. This is my culture, my identity. And we're not going to let politicians tell us that we cannot go there, be there, live there. It's not right. It's ours. That is the dream. That's what we're trying to achieve. Each generation has to do that. Now, let me give you a little bit of comedy. When the Federation broke up in 1960, 61, the integration movement when it collapsed. Eric Williams, who was then the Prime Minister of Trinidad, he made 3 profound statements. There were 10 countries that had integrated. Jamaica pulled out. The famous statement, 1 from 10 equals 0. Fantastic mathematics. 1 from 10 equals 0. Then he went on to say, what God has put asunder, let no man put together. God has scattered us, so let no man integrate us. That was his remarkable humor. And then he ended by saying, the Caribbean is a space that is integrated by fish and divided by humans. So you have to have that conceptual sense of humor to deal with all of these realities. But here's the profound issue that, for me, that was very important. In the Caribbean, because of the struggle against slavery, and every country where there were hills and mountains, and every island where there were hills and mountains, the runaway Africans had built free societies up in the hills. So the Maroons were in the hills of Cuba, Jamaica, Puerto Rico, Guatemala, all the way through, Guadeloupe, Martinique, Grenada, St. Vincent. Here were all these Black people living freely up in the hills, and down in the valleys, they were enslaved. So the enslaved people were in the valleys and the free people were in the hills. Now that should tell you something. That should tell you something for your own island. Slavery in the valley and freedom in the hills. So imagine then a world in which the hills were free and the valleys were enslaved. That should tell you something about what kind of civilization are you living in? What kind of world are you living in? A world where there's slavery in the valleys and freedom in the mountains? Well, 2 worlds then, 2 worlds. The Caribbean is a place of 2 worlds. Freedom and slavery, struggling for dominance, struggling for dominance. That is now in our blood. We have inherited that from history, that we have an impulse for freedom, and we have a history of unfreedom. But in our blood is running this thing called freedom. Nobody enslave me. No, freedom. No, we all know that spirit. That is who we are. Committed to freedom at all costs. Sometimes we take it too far, but that's who we are. West Indian people, you go to England, we were in England and they tried to oppress us. We said, no way, stand up for your rights. We went to America to look for work. They tried to oppress us. No way. The music, the art, the language, no, we are never ever going to be oppressed by anyone ever again, because we are the freest people in the world. And why are we the freest people in the world? We are the freest people in the world because we were slaves. They enslaved us. And we came out of that with confidence. Our spirits were never broken. We were resilient. We came out of that and we said, never again. And from now on, the most important value is freedom. And we are not going back, we are going forward. This is who we are, the dialectics of Caribbean culture. And in all of this, what is important to us? Justice. What is important to us? Express yourself. What is important to us? Stand tall and hold your head up. What is important to us? The world. We are going to be out there in the world. We might be from small islands, but we're not small people. So yes, the fastest man in the world, yes. The fastest woman in the world, yes. The best cricketer in the world, yes. Nobel laureate, literature, economics, yes. And on and on and on. Now this young man from Grenada, Lewis Hamilton, the best Formula One driver in the world, yes. And we go on and on because we are from the world. We don't see ourselves as trapped in small islands. The island is our home, but the world is our playing ground. And that's how we are. That's how we're going to be. That makes us Caribbean. That's why anywhere you go in the world, you find Caribbean people doing great things. Caribbean people rising to the top, because that is now in our blood, in our DNA, and the world has come to expect that of us. So CARICOM now has to hold all of this together. I want you to imagine you're goat, and it's bubbling, and the smell and it's bubbling, and you put the lid. And when you put the lid on, all that steam and is rising up, but guess what? CARICOM is that pot that is trying to keep all of this together, keep it all in one place so that we can get the outcome we're looking for. So yes, that is why we support CARICOM. It is the structure that holds us together. It's the structure that says to us, we are one people. It's the structure that says, even though we argue over trade and politics and cricket and whether Calypso is sweeter than Kaizo or not, we have all of those kind of arguments. You know, we have those arguments, but we have them as domestic arguments. So when a Jamaican is having a quarrel with a Trini, with a Beji, with a Vinci and Guyanese and so on, it's domestic. Don't mess with our business because it's a domestic conversation. It's an internal conversation. So you, the UWI STAT, you're from all over the world. You're from all over the world, and you're all over the Caribbean world, and you are living it. I am living it too. You know, I have 5 sisters, and they're all married to a man from a different Caribbean island. So you can imagine now, I have all of these little nephews and nieces, half Jamaican, half Trini, half Bajan, half Grenadian. So all of these little kids, I have all of these family members, so that Christmas is CARICOM for me. When we all get together, the Beckles clan is a CARICOM clan. This is how it is. So I'm living it every day. I'm walking it and living it. I am here in Jamaica. I have a sister who's been living in Jamaica for 20 years. And she's not married to a Jamaican, she's married to a Grenadian. Bajan, married a Grenadian, living in Jamaica, kids are born in Jamaica, kids are Jamaican, and there you go, and on and on. This is who we are. So I really want to thank you. So the question I want to share with you is this. I've heard some of what Ashley was saying, and I've heard some of James's response. What are the big questions? Every generation has to face big questions. When I was a student in the UK, what was a big question for me? Organizing to get Nelson Mandela out of jail. Organizing, mobilizing, demonstrating to bring down apartheid in South Africa. So as a student, I'm in the guild, and I'm organizing conferences and seminars. I'm down in London with my placard outside the South African embassy, bring no apartheid, freedom, yes, apartheid, no. My intellectualism, my activism, my oratory, my capacity to speak and to organize, all of that was honed when I was a student in the anti-apartheid movement, bringing down apartheid, getting Nelson Mandela out of jail. You can imagine when I met him, how I felt. I spent all of my teenage years fighting to free a man who I had never met, but his spirit was the spirit that was going to free my generation. So we did what we had to do. By the time I finished my student years, I felt so proud that I had exercised my mind in every way. Yes, I did what I had to do. And by the way, I got an upper second in my first degree, because there used to be a rumor that the best students got an upper second. Because you can't be playing cricket for your campus, playing football for your campus, president of the guild, on the guild of students, and you're on every possible thing and get first class as well. You know, so you get an upper second there. Good, upper second is cool. That's cool. That's cool, because you were busy with some other business, you know what I mean? And I had a lot of business to deal with on campus, a lot of business. You know, yes, I spent my time in the library. I gave it my best shot, but I had things to do in the guild as well. You know, so that was part of the development of who I became as your Vice Chancellor. So when I speak with you, about these big issues. I'm speaking to you from personal experience. I'm remembering my own student life. I am remembering why I will always stand with the students, why I will never let go of my students. When people try to hurt them with big fees and proposing strategies, no, Vice Chancellor will stand with the students because he remembered when as a student struggling to survive with fees. I was fortunate that I was a good sportsman. I was fortunate that I could play semi-professional cricket in my community, where I would get £50 for playing a cricket match. And I was able to get some cricket money together, you know, to supplement my books and my meals. So I had some additional income because I could sell my cricketing skill to make some money to get through school. So yes, all of those hustles, but guess what? Fortitude, commitment, and vision to the big issues. And now you guys have to deal with the triple C, chronic disease, the diabetes, hypertension ripping through the Black people because of our history of slavery and colonization. You know, what did you learn about slavery? You eat what you grow. What did you grow? You grow sugar. So you ate sugar. So now all the Black people in the Caribbean and the Indian people too are addicted to sugar. We are all addicted to it because for 400 years, that's all we ate on a regular basis. Every day we ate sugar. And we didn't use sugar as a sweetener. For many of us, we had sugar as a meal. I used to go to school when I was in primary school in Barbados. I used to go to school with a little bag of sugar. And when I was hungry, I put my hand and ate sugar. And my generation of poor people did that. We ate sugar as a meal because our ancestors did that. Working on the plantations in slavery, no food. You ate sugar. That was all that was in abundance because that's what you produce. You know, when I protest these issues and I talk about these issues with my mother, she would say to me, well, you know, when I was young, when I was a child, my mother, she used to have a little sock and they would put sugar in the sock and they would soak the sock in water and drip it into the baby's mouth. So when the baby was hungry, you drip sugar into its mouth to keep it quiet. And the babies love that, love the sweetness of sugar dripping into their lips. And that was her generation. So this is why today we are all addicted to it. Sodas, sweet drink, this and that. And the diabetes is ripping through us. We are cultural victims. Now we have this whole thing about climate change. Same issues. The countries that have been colonized are the ones that are being ravished by climate change. In the Caribbean, rising sea levels. Some of our islands are getting smaller and smaller. Beaches that I knew in Barbados as a child have shrunk down to nothing. Many beaches are disappearing. Here in Jamaica, there are beaches that are also disappearing. So we are seeing our lives and our ecosystems, our world, being reshaped and destroyed through no fault of our own. We did not create industrial structures that belch smoke and fog and heat into the air. We didn't do that, but yet we are the ones whose islands are disappearing, shrinking. We're the ones that you build a hotel today and there's a beach. Then 10 years later, the sea is up to the wall of the hotel. How's that going to work? So this is what we are seeing. I know, of course, the hurricanes that come every year, the hurricanes, you know, and the death and destruction, who are being destroyed? It's the poor people. The rain comes, the wind. If you are rich enough and you live in a strong wall structure, fine. But if you're poor and you live in a watercourse and you live in a little valley, when the mud comes down, who gets buried under the mud? The poor people, the descendants of slaves. They're the ones who are in a position where the mud comes down and your whole little wooden house is buried under mud. They're the ones who live in places, live in locations where they are not resilient. Flood, washing away villages. People are dying. History is here with us. These are the issues that we have to address. Poverty, slum dwelling. When we enter independence in the 1960s, and every manifesto of every political party that was going into independence, they all said the same thing. We are going to clean up the slums. Slum clearance is the #1 priority of all of these governments. And here we are now 60 years later, and the slums are growing. The slums and the shacks are growing. People living in all kind of sufferers' heights. And Jamaica, there's a place they call it sufferers' heights. The people are living in these places that are not suited to 21st century habitation. We should be concerned about those issues. We should be saying, clear the slums, clear the slums. Let the people live in proper places. So the activists, so yes, I have always described myself as an activist because I am intolerant of injustice. I do not like injustice. When I see injustice, it riles me up. And that has been my life. So I say to students, be sensitive to your world. Think not of yourself. Think of those around you, your families, your community. Help those who need help. Let your voice be the voice of reason and activism. Speak out to your society. I have said, for example, that I will always be an advocate because I cannot tolerate the issues that I see are facing the majority of our people. And now we have the COVID-19, and we have taken the roof off the house, and now we can see the spread of poverty in the Caribbean. There's much more poverty than we thought, because now we can see how ghettoization has spread over the last 20, 30 years. We have seen how it has spread, and now the COVID has exposed it. When people speak of community spread, the people are so choked up together in little places. I get it, you get it, we spread it because we're so choked up in communities. So these are all issues that I suggest, and I would recommend that you think about them. You discuss them with yourselves. Let your voice be the voice of hope. Let your communities know that as young people, you care. And if you're going to care, you must be courageous. When they criticize you, don't run because they criticize you. Have courage. Have courage. If you have commitment, you have courage. And if you believe in what you are thinking, your virtues and your values, and if you have values and virtues and you believe this is my core, this is who I am. And I am a citizen of this country, and I believe in democracy, I believe in justice, I believe in equality, I believe in fairness, I don't believe in discrimination, I don't believe in injustice, and I will let my voice be heard. That voice is going to become the making of the next generation that comes after you. You might not know it, but you are going to be shaping the world of the next generation. So you do your part, play your part. And CARICOM, you are doing this within CARICOM, because CARICOM is the umbrella. We're all under that umbrella, not Rihanna's umbrella, but we're all under that umbrella, okay? That's what CARICOM is. And we are all trying to make this world better within our region. And we're going to survive. We're going to make it. The world is tough, but guess what? We Caribbean people, we have the energy, we have the focus, and we are a people full of pride, not false pride, not the false pride that produces arrogance, the pride that produces results, that makes you resilient. Don't step on my foot. You step on my foot, I will say, sir, come on. I have feet, you have feet. Let us be humans. Let us move together. Let us move together. Let's do it together. CARICOM is our space. We're going to big up CARICOM. We're going to criticize it when it needs criticism. We're going to improve it when it needs improvement, but it is ours. We're not destructive, we are constructive. The purpose of criticism is to make it better. The purpose of criticism is not to rip it apart, it's to make it better. Find the faults and fix them. Find the issues, fix them, make it better. And that is why UWI under my watch has become the #1 university in the Caribbean, the top 1%, the top 1% in the world in our age cohort. All those universities under 100 years old, we are in the top 1% because we made it that way. It didn't happen overnight. We worked hard, we structured the university. Where we were weak, we make it strong. Where it was good, we make it better. And we spent 4 years planning this strategy. And then we said, now rank us. And when they ranked us globally, we are up there in the top. Why? Generations of hard work, generations of hard work, generations of students, generations of administrators, generations of teachers. And after 70 years, that's where we are at the top, 70 years. And we now move from there. That's where we are. And when you hear a UWI student, UWI means global excellence. UWI means being at the top. It does not mean that UWI does not have problems. All universities have problems. But guess what? The core, the essence, the spirit, the results, that's who we are, and that's where we are going to stay. And we are doing this within CARICOM. CARICOM is our home, and we are the CARICOM University, and we are the university out there in the world. So bless you and thank you. And I will take any questions you have.
Professor Beckles, I just want to say I'm going to have a little fangirl moment because I have been beaming and smiling on my glad bag bus. And you may not see it in the chat, but the ambassadors and ambassador designates, they're extremely happy to have you with us. They're really appreciative. And I just want to say thank you for coming. And you have several questions coming in. So as they came in, I'm just going to ask them. That's fine with you.
Lovely. I'll take a few.
Okay, so, and yes, we see the hands. We're coming to you. Shamar Wedderburn, I acknowledge your hand. We have a question coming in. It says, as Caribbean citizens, we are an assimilation of several identities and ethnicities, as Kamal Brathwaite posited. The Caribbean society is creolized, a blend of many cultures. Do you believe that Stuart Hall's theory of double diasporization is the main factor that led to regional integration in the late 60s and early 80s, pushed by West Indian Oxford students? It's a pretty long question, and the last part of it says, and if you think it is so, do you think that as a people we need to continue having members of the diaspora to come back to their country so that they can build CARICOM?
Well, first of all, you have to figure out what is a nation? A nation is a community with a common identity in which citizens are at home and abroad. Some of your citizens are always going to be abroad. You should not really want all of your citizens to stay at home. It's always good when some of your citizens are scattered around the world, because what they do is to create a dialectic between home and abroad, but citizens. And the diaspora is critical to the development of the Caribbean. I believe that I have added value to the Caribbean. I came from the diaspora. I left my little village in Barbados, went to Birmingham, England, one of the biggest cities in the world, spent 15 years in Britain. I came home to make my contribution to my people. I could have stayed and make it there, and I did make a contribution there, because when I was there, I was very committed in the West Indian community. I learned a lot from the West Indian community. I became West Indianized when I was in the diaspora, because for the first time in my life, I met people from all over the Caribbean. For the first time when I went to England, I met Jamaicans and Trinis and Lucians and Vincies and Guyanese and all. And I was in awe. I discovered who I am. You're West Indian. And I discovered who I am. I discovered my identity in the diaspora. Many of you are discovering your identity on UWI campuses, because probably most of you are meeting other West Indians for the first time on campuses. You see them on television, But now you have a chance to live with them, talk with them, line with them, play with them, and integrate yourselves. That is what UWI does. It integrates the way the diaspora integrates. So yes, I do believe that the development of the Caribbean, our diaspora community, which is about 20% of us, about 20% of us West Indians are living overseas. Wonderful relationship. I love going to London, New York, and meeting West Indians. One of my greatest experiences was going to Africa. I was out in Accra in Ghana, and the West Indian community had a banquet, a breakfast to welcome me. I was going to give a public lecture in Ghana. And here I am out in Africa, and I'm meeting all of these West Indians. And it was so fantastic. A lady came up to me and she says, Beckles? I said, yes. Which Beckles are you? And I said, well, my family came from this village in Barbados, and now they live in Birmingham, England. She said, are you Aidan Beckles' son? I said, yes, that's my father. Aidan, that's my father. She said, I knew your father. He was a beautiful tailor. I said, yes, my father is a tailor. He said he used to make clothes for me. When I was a little girl, he made clothes for me. And here I am out in Africa, and I'm meeting these people who are talking about my father. It was fantastic. Global Caribbean people, global Caribbean, that's who we are, a global people. All the races, all the cultures, all the civilizations. The Caribbean was the world's first global village. It was the first place in the world where all of the races came together. And mind you, they came together for the wrong reasons. but they came together, and we have built a callaloo out of it. One people, many identities, many cultures, but one Caribbean people.
Thank you for that response. We have Mr. Shamar Wedderburn with his hand raised. And Shamar, you may go ahead and pose your question to Professor Beckles.
Right. So Professor Sir Beckles, let me first say greetings, because I think it's been a while since I last saw you, since we interacted at your last open house. But I have to say, yes, before I even begin that, right, you've shown again why you are such a brilliant historian with your presentation. I want to ask, therefore, my question, in light of what you've spoken about in terms of CARICOM, putting Humpty Dumpty together again, acting as a custodian of our community, how do you believe that, for example, UWI STAT, as we're here in this forum, can continue to play a role in this? We've been hearing, from the VPs about what they've been doing, partnerships, initiatives, we have advocacy network, and especially in alignment with the UWI AAA strategy, about how, in your belief, our vision, how do you believe that, or you want to see UWI STAT continue to, be excellent, like the young persons, as you so, admired Ashley in her articulation. So that's my question. What can UWI STAT,
so
in your belief?
Thank you so much, my friend. Good to see you again. There's a story, I think, in Greek mythology. I can't remember it very well. When I was in high school, we had to do these Latin and Greek stories and so on. But there was a story about the Cyclops, the Cyclops with the one eye. And my recollection is that they were the happiest people in the world. They had everything on life. They had everything they needed. But what they could not do is read the future. That was the one thing they couldn't possess. The ability to read the future. They had money, they had health, they were so great, powerful, but they wanted the gift of being able to read the future. And they went up to the mountain and spoke to Zeus and said, if we are so powerful and happy, why we can't read the future? And they made a deal. And Zeus said, okay, I will give you the ability to read your future. Each of you will be able to read your future. But in return, you give up one of your eyes. And they gave up one eye, so they became a one-eyed people. But with the one eye they had, each one was able to see the very day and moment they were going to die. They will see their lives, but they will see their lives in the future, but they will also see that very moment when they would die. And they became the unhappiest people in the world because of it. Now, you cannot read the future as young people. I mean, But you don't want to be able to read the future. You want to be able to do the right thing today. You want to be able to understand your present, understand it, have a vision of the future. You must have an ideal of the future. And once you construct that ideal, you move towards achieving it in your own way. I could not imagine myself knowing what I knew as a teenager, living in a world in which all of our heroes are either in prison or being massacred. And I did nothing and said nothing because it was about me. And therefore, I tried to create a life that was about the future, that I dreamed for and wanted and desired. Justice, equality, the protection of the Black people, helping the Caribbean to rise up into its future, helping the underdeveloped people, the people in poverty, as I was living in poverty, how to find a way to get out of poverty. I was the fourth child in my family, which meant there were 7 children. I was the middle child, 3 above, 3 younger. I was the first to go to university. I went to university, but I had 3 younger sisters and I dragged them along with me. I said, listen, you kids, you are going to university whether you like it or not. They were in primary school and I trained them and I dragged my little baby sisters to university. The older ones felt shame and guilt. Imagine all the younger ones going off to university and the older ones are not. Then they felt shame and guilt and they came to university. Now all 7 of us are university graduates. Not bad for a working class family, but guess what? We set an example to the other families and we help to uplift the other families that you can escape poverty. You can make a better contribution to your community. So UWI STAT, what you're doing, you can't read the future. You can imagine it. And when you imagine it and you have your values and your virtues lined up, you go in pursuit of it, speak to it, struggle towards it. And a day is going to come when you will be standing somewhere, sitting somewhere, and you're going to remember, you know, when I was 19 years old, this is what I was doing. And that prepared you. You might become a great artist, a great politician, a great lawyer, you might become something phenomenal, but you are going to remember this time. You're going to remember this moment. You will never forget it. You will never forget it. When I told Nelson Mandela, I said, Mr. Mandela, the first time I almost lost my life was because of you. And he smiled and said, why? How? And I said to him, sir, I was in the demonstration outside of the South African embassy in 1976, the summer I graduated. And it was a difficult time. And I fell down on the ground with my placard. And a policeman on a horse tried to trample me with his horse. And I'm down on the ground and I could see the horse coming down on me. And I could see the belly of the horse and the feet coming down. And let me tell you, my life went like a flash. But I was able to roll and barely escape the feet of the horse. And I told Nelson the story. And he gave me a hug and said, you almost died for me. I said, I died for you and what you represented, sir. But I remember that now. That was 45 years ago. But I always remember, you will remember these struggles that you will participate in when you become much older, and it will mean a great deal to you. And you will have some great stories to tell your children. Keep pushing.
Right. Thanks for that. And one, if I can, you said that keep doing what you're doing now, and what matters is what you're doing now in that present. So in furtherance to what you've heard already, I just know if you have anything in the now or present, or perhaps Ashley can ask that back, because I know that other person have questions.
Right. So thank you, Shamar. So actually, Professor Beckles, we have 3, because I know you're a busy man. We have 3 questions for you. And I'm going to ask, and then I'll segue into the others. So this is a general question that the ambassadors have. How do you feel about our work thus far? And what would you recommend that we do going forward to promote the mandates of CARICOM? That's one question of the 3.
Well, you know, this morning, the prime ministers were discussing the reparations issue. As you know, there was a traditional interpretation of reparations. Reparations is about Black people hanging around on street corners wanting handouts from white people. That is how they used to define it. But we said, no. Reparations is about cleaning up the mess that we have inherited from colonization. You know, when Jamaica became independent in 1962, half of the people could not read or write. There was no housing. There was no housing for more than half of the population. There was no running water for half of the population. That is what they did to us. They sucked us dry, exported all the West back to England to finance their own development, but left our islands in a mess. Look at our islands. Look at our islands, and you see the poor infrastructure. You see the absence of many of the basic needs that modern countries need. You can do two things. You can blame yourself and say, boy, we really have mismanaged our countries. We really can't manage our own affairs. That's what they want you to think. Or you can also say, let us go back to the beginning. What did this country look like when we became independent? Did we make a good job of it? And then you come to realize that since independence, most of what we have been doing is cleaning up the mess that we inherited. The illiteracy, the slums, the bad infrastructure, bad roads, bad water, bad planning, all the people living in the wrong places on the slopes of mountains and water courses, all of that kind of confusion that we're trying to resolve. Not enough facilities for public health. We will take our share of responsibility, but those who created this mess need to come back and help us to clean it up. Help us to clean it. That is what reparations is. Calling those who have created the mess that you are in, helping you, working with you in partnership to clean up the mess for the purpose of development. When I think of all those schools in rural Guyana and rural Jamaica and all of the places where the schools don't have internet, they don't have this, and governments are struggling to provide all of these basic facilities for education. That is because they're cleaning up the mess that they've inherited. But suppose Britain had given Jamaica a development grant, as it is entitled to help with infrastructure. At independence, how much further along we would have been. So the governments are saying, we need to get the younger generation to understand what reparations is all about so that you can get involved in the movement. You remember when the Prime Minister of Britain came to Jamaica 4 years ago and offered Jamaica prison. Jamaica was asking for support, for technology transfer, for education. Give us a grant to help clean up some of the slums of West Kingston. Give us some support to help us to build. And they came out with a notion of giving us a prison. I mean, that kind of debate is what the young people need to get involved in. So if you guys get involved in the reparations movement, you would then be in a position to look at your countries. What help do we need in public health? What help do we need in education? What help do we need in agricultural reform? Getting people to farm with technology and so on. What help do we need with the university? Why is it that our students are struggling to make basic ends meet as campuses and we have to keep increasing fees? All of these kinds of questions are the kinds of questions that reparations is about, where we could go down to the British High Commissioner and say, Mr. High Commissioner, we want a discussion. We want to talk about all that wealth you have extracted from the Caribbean. We want 10% of it back to promote our own development. We want you to put some pressure on your government to put some resources back, the money you have taken out. And remember the argument, your first Vice Chancellor, Sir Arthur Lewis, wrote a little book in 1939 called Labor in the West Indies. A little book, only about 120, 30 pages. labor in the West Indies. And in it, he says, Britain has had the benefit of 200 years of free labor from 20 million Black people. 200 years of free labor from 20 million Black people. And that was the wealth they used to build their own country. And we need to have some of that back. We need some of it back in the Caribbean to promote our own development. And the prime ministers this morning were all saying, yes, we need to get the young people to be champions of reparations for development. So yes, that is one of the issues I would love to see you guys get involved in.
Right, so UWI STAT can advance the mandates of CARICOM by being at the forefront of major issues for CARICOM. So possibly we may need to rebrand a portfolio, VP of CARICOM and reparations relations, I'm not sure. Very quickly, Vice Chancellor, we're gonna take our very last questions with some very quick and spicy responses. I remember Jewel Robinson had her hand up. Jewel, ask your question, after which I will ask a question from the chat and another one that just came in on the phone, and we will wrap up. So quick questions, sure. Quick responses. Jewel Robinson, you're up.
Hello. I just want to say that what you were saying earlier about you finding your Caribbean identity, and that most of us coming to university, coming to UWI would be our first time engaging with other persons from the Caribbean. My question is, that is true for me, but my question is, outside of the university, or because we're already here and we're already interacting with persons from the different Caribbean countries, and UWI STAT, of course, how would you recommend someone, a university student, to fully embrace being a West Indian and embracing other CARICOM cultures and getting to know themselves and finding their identity as West Indians?
Well, very good. Well, in the pre-COVID and now in the post-COVID, I would certainly, when physical movement becomes less challenging health-wise, you participate in Caribbean activity. When I used to live in Jamaica, or when I was living in Barbados, every opportunity to go and watch a cricket match, listen to me, I jump on a plane and I go to Sabina Park or Border in Guyana or Antigua Recreation Ground to go somewhere to watch the West Indies team. That's what I used to do, move from island to island, mixing up, co-mingling, watching cricket. Many of my friends went to Carnival. Many of my friends went to church conventions and other conventions. Take every opportunity to travel through the islands for activities, get to know, build bonds, build friendships, but live a Caribbean life. If you're going to watch cricket, you'll live in Caribbean. If you go to Carnival, you'll live in Carnival. Reggae, flash, splash, you live in the Caribbean. Going to church conventions because you're part of a global Pentecostal movement, you live in the Caribbean life. Whatever is your thing, movement, travel, engage, live the Caribbean life. But now, because of COVID, you can do that online. All of those conversations that are taking place. What are those conversations? Climate change conversations. You have your chat rooms across the region. You hook up with other people across the region, your age group generation, and you have young people for climate change. And then you have all of these conversations online. You can do all of that. You can use the technology to do the same thing. Hook up conversations across the region. And then you will come to realize, hey, we're from different islands, but we all have the same perspective. We have a common view. This issue is hurting the Caribbean. Let's talk about it online. When the post-COVID thing comes, then you can return to that movement and that engagement. But the critical thing is identify the things that are Caribbean, that are dear to you, that you believe in, that you love, and live them as a Caribbean citizen. Move, connect, technology, interact, but enjoy it, defend it, support it as Caribbean. And that could be the basis of a really good life.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Professor Beckles, we have a question from Raquel Preville. Raquel, quickly ask your question so we can get a quick response, and then we'll have a final question.
Good afternoon, everybody, and good afternoon to Hilary Beckles. First of all, it's an honor to even be asking you this question overall, truly. And my question would be, in an era where so many persons no longer believe in the strength of CARICOM, and so many persons belittle the purpose of this institution, how do we, as students, as a nation, as a region, move and grow in an era where entire islands do not even recognize the purpose of this institution? Islands think that it is something of the past. How do we now take this mandate and move forward?
Eric Williams, what God has put asunder, let no man put together. That was comedy. That was humor. We Caribbean people are divided by water. We live in multiple islands, multiple communities. But guess what? Common culture, common identity. In such spaces, there are always forces that are trying to pull you apart. So when you live in an archipelago of islands, there will always be forces that are pulling you apart and forces that are pulling you together. They exist simultaneously. You will always be tugged apart and you will always be pulled together. So you will be living in these two worlds every day, every week. You read the newspapers, you watch television, you see evidence of integration, you see evidence of disintegration. Integration and disintegration go hand in hand. That is part of life. What you have to realize that there is greater benefit for you, your family, your community, and the people coming together than pulling apart. So yes, you will have to stand up with those forces that are pulling you together, and you will have to resist those forces that are pulling you apart. There is no future, there is no development potential in being pulled apart. But recognize those forces, they exist, and recognize that integration also exists. And then you learn to live with the two forces at the same time and put your bucket down in the right well.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, and our final question to you, Professor Beckles, actually comes from the president himself, Mr. James Peart. James, you may come and ask your question.
Thank you. All right, so earlier our former president of the Corps, Shamar Weatherburn, had asked about the UWI Vice Chancellor's AAA strategy. And my follow-up question to that is, on the point of activism and public advocacy, this year as a Corps, we were successful in the Regional Pen Pal Initiative in partnerships for an International Court of Justice Advisory Opinion on Climate Justice. We appreciate the support over the years, but as the Vice Chancellor, no, as our Vice Chancellor, you mentioned the next steps being the media, discussions and engagements. So my question to you is, how can we work closer and more direct with you as ambassadors to facilitate these changes, whether from discussions with heads of government or further partnerships with climate action agencies?
Okay, well, yes, when I became Vice Chancellor, I needed to write, conceptualize a strategic plan. Because if you want to lead, you need a strategic plan. I conceptualized the AAA because I said I need to present a plan for the university that will at the same time be a plan for the region, so that the university and the region would have basically the same plan. The AAA, the issue about access, the biggest item facing the university, as far as I was concerned, was that only a few of our school leavers go to university. And we have the lowest enrollment in university education in the whole hemisphere. Let me tell you, it's painful from Alaska to Argentina. If you take the youth age group 18 to 30, the Caribbean has the lowest percentage of young people in that group that goes on to university. And it is terrible. It has to do with the history of colonization, lack of access, and inadequate support for education. And I thought we had to do something about that. So we need a strategic plan that speaks to access, encouraging, mobilizing, online, but access to build up the Caribbean people, because you're not going to get development if 3/4 of your people are not educated. When the Jamaica minister said last year that only 17 70% of the Jamaica labor force has an educational certification, 1-7. And you're competing with countries where it's 80% and 90%. And we only have 1-7. How can we compete? Production, productivity, alignment. The Caribbean has to be aligned with the world. To get the benefits of competition, we had to align. Our tourism needs alignment. Manufacturing needs, agriculture. You have to align your economy with the world economy so that you plug your economy into the world economy. Alignment, agility. You need to be quick on your feet to take advantage of every opportunity that comes your way. You have to be agile. You can't be flat-footed and lazy. You have to be agile. There are always opportunities to open up. You have to be able to see it, grasp it. And therefore, the university and the Caribbean together has to be more agile. Now, there's some issues in communication. I think that one of the best things I did as Vice Chancellor that I'm most proud of is developing UWI. The first university in this hemisphere to have its own cable station. I felt great, UWI. Here's UWI, the only university with its own TV, 24/7 cable channel. Very proud of that. And what did I do? I said, every day, the students must have their own program. The students must have their own program. So we gave the students a block, 2 hours per day. Put in whatever this is your time. This is your time. This is your UWI TV system. Pelican Pride, this is yours. This is yours. Become a producer, become a director, write the script, film it, put it on, identify the idea, make the content. UWI TV is yours. That is something I did because I profoundly believe that you have to invest in young people. Many of you who are now involved in UWI TV productions, you're going to become great in the future. Nobel laureates and so on for the work you're doing in media communications, developing that pride. But now you have the opportunity to write scripts and to do all kinds of fantastic things. So yes, we are going from strength to strength. And we are doing it within CARICOM. Each time we have major developments, I speak with the CARICOM leaders and I try to align what we do with CARICOM because UWI is here to serve the people. The people live within CARICOM. UWI is here to build up CARICOM and to strengthen the people. Thank you, James.
Thank you for your answer, Sir Hilary Beckles, and definitely for that perspective as a regional core and in line with your AAA strategy on access and alignment. We'll definitely reach out to your office for continued discussion about how we can address these issues that you mentioned, both closer in mobilizing among the different regional heads of states and different agencies. So definitely look out for an email from me.
Thank you. Thank you. Look forward to it.
Okay, Professor Beckles, we know you're busy, but we have to, get you while we have you. So quick question, are you able to facilitate one last question?
Yes, one final one, then I go back to CARICOM.
Okay. Mario Galbert, I see you have your hand raised. So I'm going to ask you to unmute. I don't know if you want to turn on your camera, but ask your question very quickly and then Professor will wrap up and then we'll end the session.
Thank you very much for that. My question is mainly about the CARICOM as an institution providing opportunities for the regional students. And I'm looking at it from a standpoint from a student who is well known in terms of looking for internships from international and regional institutions. And I believe that CARICOM should play a more greater role in providing internship opportunities for regional students and recent graduates, especially in your call for persons to be a part of the reparations conversation. I believe the UWI can partner with CARICOM to provide an internship program or a young professionals program for persons to be more involved with the conversation to get persons on. I've looked in at many other institutions, they have OECD, African Union, United Nations, EU, who have done regional internship opportunities. I believe, in a sense, Mr. Sir Beckles, that you should lead this task for getting more young people on board in terms of internship opportunities. So can you actually, every time you go back to CARICOM, ask the Secretary General to actually have a more integrational approach in terms of having an internship program going forward?
Absolutely, this is a brilliant idea. I do know that they have an internship system. They have a youth desk, and the youth desk is very active, supporting students moving around the region, getting involved in major activities, traveling to represent the region. There's a youth development program and there's a youth desk. There is that. What you're speaking about is that it should be larger, grander, more well-known. It should be more popular, it should be promoted. It should be out there available to every young people who are looking for an opportunity. So yes, I will say to them that the UWI Ambassador Stat, Vice Chancellor Stat, would like to have this made much more visible. Would like to have this with pamphlets and programs. In fact, what you should probably do is get in touch with UWI TV and says, we want an hour slot. We want to focus for the next 2 months on CARICOM youth opportunities programs, and do a documentary on it, speak about it, get your presidents to collect the data. So that's a project, but I will definitely look into this to make it much more aggressively known, much more popular. Celia, let's keep that in front of me. We will make sure that we get this knowledge out and make it much more readily available to our students. It needs to be done. It definitely needs to be done. So
I will contact UWI TV for sure, VC.
Yes, and get it, make it communicable to all the students.
Certainly.
So,
and before you go to VC, I just would like, I'm going to invite Ashley to just give you very quickly her definition of integrational wealth, which she coined and had at the forum yesterday, 2 days ago. But I think it's a very good definition and one that you might like to share with some of the heads of government. So Ashley, could you give a quick summary of integrational wealth?
Thank you, Mrs. Davison Francis. Admittedly, you put me on the spot. VC, the term that I coined, integrational wealth, essentially when I was thinking about it, what came to mind was the availability and the opportunity for us to advance holistically as a region, utilizing all the resources that we have. So we're talking about natural resources, we're talking about human capital, we're talking about fiscal resources, putting them together in one, you could say, boiling pot for dissemination and for it to be developed on a global stage. So in the same way that you have the UN, and they have their World Development Bank and various other geopolitical sectors having their wealth of information, their plethora of resources, I figured that when we talk about integrational wealth, it's what can come from us really working.
We just had a dip in the internet from Ashley.
Oh, the person.
I think we've lost her, but you got.
No, she's back. Ashley's back.
Go ahead, Ashley.
Oh, where did you?
Last we heard where you were.
We're talking about the UN.
The UN.
Oh, I was giving the example of the United Nations and how they have specific entities that are curated for their purpose as a League of Nations. So what I was saying is that when I thought of integrational wealth, I thought of the possibilities that can come only when it is that we as CARICOM member states come together in everything. So we're talking about educational infrastructure, we're talking about fiscal capabilities, natural resources, and so on. So it's the success that comes from us working together. So integrational wealth, the success that can come from us collaborating as one block or one nation full of many Caribbean countries. So I hope that coined phrase can be patented and go somewhere and possibly be a product of myself and a product of UWI STAT Mona.
Well, that is fantastic. Now, Ashley, thank you very much. I'm going to give you and Celia a project. I would like you to write that down on a sheet of paper. The title, Integrational Wealth, write it down, everything you just said on a sheet of paper, and we'll create a little pamphlet on that. Then we will have many copies made, and then we will circulate that. I will certainly walk around with a handful of those in my bag, and when I speak, I will distribute them to say, you know, here's actually the inventor of the term integrational wealth. It's a brilliant concept. And I will give some lectures on that subject. I will think about what it means to me, and I will give a lecture on that. And I will say tomorrow I'm going to lecture on integrational wealth and developing the theory of Ashley Onfroy, who's developed this, and I'm going to give you my view on this. So thank you for that. It's very inspiring, very, very inspiring. So we'll make a little pamphlet, we'll do it as a brochure, we'll hand them out, and we will get you also to come and speak about this project. And I will certainly want to help to mentor you, but it's a great idea. We'll get an economist to talk to you about it. How can it be translated in this industry, that industry? Brilliant concept, but we will keep your intellectual property as your own. So we'll put it into a pamphlet that seals your intellectual property. This is your theory, and the rest of us will talk about it.
Sounds wonderful, VC. And I'll give you an online as well as a in-person pamphlet.
Brilliant. And I will certainly give a lecture on what it means to me. Thank you.
Thank you, VC. Ashley?
Oh, well, Professor Beckles, just forgive my shock and my happiness. I just want to thank you so much for, wow, okay. I want to thank you so much for being here with us this afternoon. It has been honestly one of the greatest moments of my life. I'm pretty sure everyone here can attest to that. And thank you so much, Professor Beckles, for giving of yourself in this manner. Thank you for even assisting with the development of UWI STAT over the years, for giving us as Caribbean youth an opportunity to understand what it means to have West Indian pride and to advance the region with whatever skills and talents that God has given us. Thank you so much for being here, Vice Chancellor. We really appreciate it.
No, the pleasure is mine. It's my honor to be with you. All of us only have a number of years on this planet. I have tried to do my best, and I will move off the stage. Then you guys become the vice chancellors and the principals and the professors, and we keep going. So we do our best. When is our time to do it? Move off the stage, let other people come. You guys are the next generation behind us. All we're doing, using a cricket metaphor, I am here to roll the wicket. I will roll the wicket so that you guys can come and bat and score lots of runs.
Thank you so much. And I want to also extend thanks to Mrs. Davison Francis. Thank you so much too for all that you've been doing for us. So Professor, thank you. Have an exceptional evening.
Thank you.
Yes. Wow.
Thank you.
Wow.
And blessings to all of you. Thank you, Ashley. Blessings. Thank you, James. Thank you, all of you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Same to you, Lucy. So,
okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Ladies and gentlemen, wow, this is amazing. This is amazing. And I'm so happy that you're here to witness this. This is the first ever staging of CARICOM 101. And if you're here, folks, you are a part of history. You made it here to listen to your Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies talk about what it means to be a West Indian citizen, what it means to have CARICOM pride, what it means to advance the tenets and the mandates. Thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you again, Mrs. Davison Francis. Thank you to all my executive members. Thank you to the ambassadors, ambassador designates, clubs and societies members, persons who posed questions, persons who shared the flyer. Thank you for making CARICOM Week be the success that it has been thus far. And not to worry, this will be uploaded to our YouTube page. So if you have friends and family who were not able to be here with us in real time, they can always go back and listen and watch the recording. So thank you so much, everyone. This has been an exceptional evening. I am your Vice President of CARICOM Relations for UWI STAT Mona. Thanking you again for being here. Have a wonderful evening and tune in to the rest of our CARICOM Week activities. Thank you. What good, enough blessings.